After a thrilling Matchweek 13 of the WSL season, we're here to review it. In this video, we discuss what on earth happened in Man City versus Arsenal, why Aston Villa deserved to beat Chelsea, and how Everton are flying following a strong January window. This is our Matchweek 13 WSL review. Alright, let's get into it. Matchweek 13 of the WSL season. I can't believe there's only 9 to go, and it was a matchweek that provided goals, provided action, and we had some great streams as well on Sunday, so thanks to everyone that joined us for those. We're back now, though, to review the action from the matchweek. Let's start with the action over in Manchester. Man City versus Arsenal. Manchester City 3, Arsenal 4. One hell of a game, Harry.
What a match this was. What a way to start the weekend. It was an incredible game. It had everything. It had goals. It had controversy. What everything you could want from a close match at the top. It was brilliant. It was so open. It was, from a neutral point of view, it was a brilliant game to watch. I couldn't imagine being a fan of one of these two clubs during the game because it was such a roller coaster of emotions, but overall, Arsenal, I think they deserved the win, and that was good to see, that despite the craziness of the game, the deserved winners still managed to take the 3 points. I think Man City, at the end of the day, were they were a bit fortunate to be in the game, and I think that again, it was very similar to the United game, where such a poor start just cost them already, and they just couldn't get it back, and it was. Yeah, they've got to work on stop conceding loads of goals in the first 10 minutes and putting yourselves 2 or 3-0 down.
Yeah, as you said, it was a really slow start. It was more costly errors from Alexandri, that first minute one especially, where obviously Keating plays the ball to her. I personally think there's anything wrong with the pass. Alexandri just needs to, once Caldente is on her, she has to get rid of that ball. Instead, she tries to dribble it past her. It obviously doesn't work. Caldente takes the ball. And again, I then think there's fault on Yui Hasegawa, as I said on stream, because Hasegawa's got to get across there. There's a little bit of hesitation. It gives Caldente the time and the space to take a shot. She curls it past Keating, 1-0 Arsenal after just 40 seconds. So a really tough start from the off for City. And it wasn't long before Arsenal doubled their advantage through Lotte Wubben-Moy. Again, City didn't. It was a silly free kick to give away in the first place. Keating comes to claim the ball, nowhere near it, punches Wubben-Moy in the face. But Wubben-Moy scores anyway, just heads it over. And again, I think another just bit of poor defensive organisation, and they concede as a result of it. So Arsenal were quickly 2-0 up. The game sort of settled into a lull from then until Mary Fowler scored in the 20th minute, because City shored up. Arsenal sat really deep, which I thought was a bit of a weird choice, but it allowed City to come forwards. Pagino down the right-hand side, lovely link-up play, ends up crossing the ball in, and Mary Fowler meets it. And it was really poor defending of the cross from Arsenal, nowhere near dealing with that. And then the rest of the first half sort of played out as was. Neither side wanted to go and attack particularly. So we ended up with a first half that lulled to a 2-1 close. But it was a very exciting first 20 minutes. In the second half, Viviana Miedema scored after just 5 minutes into the second half. So very quick start for them. And Frida Mannen replied 60 seconds later. So it was very end-to-end. And I didn't realise at the time, it was only 4 minutes between that goal and the penalty.
Wow.
Which it felt a bit longer, but that was how quickly it went. The penalty decision, I think it's definitely not a penalty.
Yeah,
We made that, I mean, it's quite clear and obvious, but I think it's quite... Sorry.
No, it's not a penalty, but at the end of the day, you can't really put the blame on anyone. The referee isn't... It's way too tight for any of the officials to give that. Even, when watching it, I think a lot of people probably said penalty at first and agreed. When you slow it down, when you get a bird's eye view of it almost, you can see it wasn't a penalty, but there's no way the referee can tell that from the position from that incident. It's a really difficult one. You can't put the blame on anyone. It's unfortunate, but luckily it didn't really have a massive impact on the game.
The thing is, because it does look like the contact continues in the box when you watch it at real speed, when you watch it for the first time. And because it starts out of the box and then Virginia falls in the box, it looks like it continues. Obviously, when you watch the replay, it doesn't really. But I can see why it was given. I think, while that one I think should have been... Obviously, that shouldn't have been a penalty. I also don't think Arsenal's last goal should have stood, because it looked to me, at least in real time, there wasn't a replay, annoyingly, on the live broadcast, that Beth Mead was offside in the build-up. So it does measure itself out, and I would rather have decisions like that where they're slightly controversial
Yeah.
than have, VAR in its current Premier League edition where it just slows game down, reviews really stupid decisions and stuff like that. So I think in that regard, City deserved, in the sense, and again, it comes down to, yes, the decision shouldn't have been a penalty, but did City deserve it? Probably. They were causing Arsenal problems. Virginia was fouled by Catley. While it may have been just outside the area, it was still a foul. And so, yes, it shouldn't have been a penalty, but I think it wasn't an incredible injustice. And obviously, it won't be talked about too much because Arsenal went on to win the game. Seen the Black Stars scoring in the 78th minute. What does this mean for both sides then? Because I think it casts a bit of doubt for me on both teams. Neither side here defended particularly well. I mean, we called it in the build-up. You went 3-2 Arsenal. I said it'd be 3-3. It was quite obvious watching City's recent games that this was going to have a lot of goals because City can't defend but are very prolific in attacking areas. So it was quite obvious before kick-off that this was going to be a game filled with goals. But I think this does put into question Slager's a little bit because of our game management. I think there are even bigger questions around Gareth Taylor than there were coming into this game. So where do your thoughts lie with both of them?
I think it's one of those where the result flatters City a little bit, and without Arsenal deciding to sit back, I think they could have ran right with this game. When Arsenal, in those first 20 minutes and in the last 20, 30 minutes when Arsenal scored their 4 goals, City just couldn't contain them. That when Arsenal they were coming at City and they were putting them under all kinds of pressure, and City just could not keep up. They could not handle it. The back four really, really struggling. Keating just kept running out 30 yards out of a goal for some reason, and somehow Arsenal,
what was going on there.
Arsenal never pounced on it. I don't really know why they didn't just lob it over her. But yeah, I think that for City, I don't really know what happened to Arsenal. I don't know why they decided to go, we're 2-0 up, so let's sit back. Because then that is when City went and scored their 2 goals. And then as soon as it went level again, Arsenal went for the game. And yes, they did then concede the penalty. But then after that, they were absolutely brilliant and went on and just kept scoring goals. It's one of those for City where if Arsenal had been as attacking and as aggressive for the whole 90 minutes, then it could have been a really, really tough result. For Arsenal, just got to get it right. There was no need to slow things down and drop deeper when they were on top of the game and they were only 2-0 up. They should have just kept going and could have got 3 or 4 in that first half, and then suddenly it'd been a completely different game. So Arsenal have just got to, watch that game management. But for City, there are a lot of questions of Gareth Taylor, of the players. They're out of form. So many errors are creeping in. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it felt naive, I think, is probably the way I'd put it from Slagers. I think while the rationale was there to sit slightly deeper because City are quite poor at breaking down low blocks, it did give City the chance to be able to just put Arsenal under the cosh, and eventually Arsenal cracked under that pressure. Once they went back to their usual defensive shape, they were fine for the rest of the first half, really. So I think, in that regard, it's just a bit of naivety. I also think I would caveat Arsenal's game by saying I think if Ford was in the game and Russo played through the middle, they probably would have won this game quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Black Stars missed a whole host of chances. I know she eventually scored the winner, and that, of course, will grab the headlines. But Russo out wide was ineffective. Shock. Yeah. And Black Stars through the middle just missed so many opportunities. As you said, Keating kept running off her line, but it was scaring Black Stars off.
Yeah.
So she'd run it super wide and then wouldn't be able to get a shot away and stuff like that. And she was slotted through a few times and she puts it wide. I mean, in the game, Arsenal had 6 big chances. They only put 5 shots on target. They've got to be doing better within those sort of situations. I think, again, it just shows Arsenal got to be a bit more clinical in attacking areas. They would have won this game by a more comfortable margin had they been. Yeah. But overall, I don't think it's a bad result at all for Arsenal. 3 points on the board. It keeps them in a strong position. It means they're back ahead of Manchester City. Obviously, they had slipped behind them in the table after the loss to Chelsea. So it's an important win for Arsenal. It puts them back in the Champions League spots, which I think is exactly where they want to be. But they are still 3 points off Manchester United. That's going to be really interesting to see whether they can close that gap. But a good game. City, as you say, still with huge problems, and I think it's too much to address in this shorter format video. But City calamitous at the back, just disorganised. constantly.
Yeah.
They kept getting opened up by Arsenal, and it's been the same for all 3 games, all 4 games since Greenwood's been out, really, bar the League Cup game, which is, I don't really know why. But yeah, you look at the Arsenal game, the Villa game, the United game, just keep getting opened up. And it's going to be really interesting to see now, because obviously Arsenal play Manchester City on Thursday in the Conti Cup semi-finals, so you'll be live for that one, which it should be a really good game. But it's going to be fascinating to see how the two sides match up against each other. How will City adapt now, because they have lost this game? Will it be like they did for the United game in the Conti Cup, and then will they go on and win it potentially? How do Arsenal handle that knockout style of competition? It's going to be really interesting. So that should be good on Thursday. But yeah, in this game, big win for Arsenal. They probably should have won it by a more comfortable margin. City still in a bit of free fall at the moment. It is now 1 win in 4 for Manchester City in the league. Obviously, they have got wins in the cups, but yeah, they need to get back to winning ways soon. Moving on then to our second game of the day. Brighton 1, Crystal Palace 1, and probably from the most exciting games to one of the most shocking. Brighton dropping points, a red card in there as well. Let's talk through all of it. We'll start with the first half and the own goal. Really unfortunate for Millie Majasari, because people will look at that performance and talk about how that was a really big mistake, and it was. But her performance throughout the rest of the game was actually all right.
Yeah.
It was just that moment, and it was so infuriating for Palace and so disappointing to concede in that way. It's such a simple thing, just control the football.
Yeah.
And it goes under her foot, and it's frustrating that we still see mistakes like that at the top level.
Yeah, as you say, that just cannot happen in the top league of women's football. That is just not at the level. But it is a shame, because she had a brilliant game. Other than that, Brighton did put a little bit of pressure on, but it was a very even game. It was a game that had everything as well. So it was a real shame for Palace, because I think they'd have fancied all 3 points today. Brighton, once again, were not at the races, and it's getting really worrying for Vidicic and Brighton that the performances just seem to be getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Very even match. I think Palace would have fancied it, as again, another game with an own goal, a red card, a disallowed goal in the last minute. Both sides probably should have scored in added time. It was a crazy match that could have gone either way, and but equally, I do think that a draw was a fitting result.
Yeah, a lot of Brighton fans blaming the referee for this loss, but I think watching the game, that simply wasn't the case. I think, yes, you could argue the red card. I don't think it's a red card. I think I've seen Brighton fans claiming she won the ball. She didn't. It was a strong tackle. I don't think it was necessarily a red card, but she does go in aggressively. The body position, the body shape isn't great. And so I can see why the red card was brought out. I can see Brighton fans' complaints, but I think to claim she's won the ball and that it's not even a foul is absurd. I saw a comment below the highlights video that said, she won the ball, you can see the ball clearly moves away. It's like, the ball moves away because she goes flying in on the player. So she didn't win the ball, but I don't necessarily think it was a red card. I don't think it was high enough or dangerous enough to be a red.
I don't know.
But it was a meaty tackle. You're a referee, Harry. Would you have brought out the red card there?
I think it is. I get what it means. It does look, from the one angle of the game, it's a shame there aren't any replays or better angles of it, but from the one angle, it more looks like she goes through the ball. But I think, especially when you realise that the Palace player is there. I mean, I think it's unfortunate because Simmons doesn't mean to do it, but because the Palace players raise their leg to kick the ball, I think it means that Simmons goes in higher than she is kind of expects to. But it's on the line. I think I can understand why it's been given a red. I think it's more of a red than a yellow, but it's one of those. I think with the refereeing, I think 7 refs out of 10 might have given it a red. The others might maybe a bit more even. Depends on the referee, but it did. I think it did change the game. It did hurt Brighton a lot, obviously going down to 10 players, and Palace really took advantage. And you felt that after an own goal and a red card, that Palace they had to get something from this match. Like, they couldn't lose to a 10-person Brighton side by conceding an own goal. They had to pull it back, and they eventually did. And credit to them, because it was a much better performance than we've seen from Palace in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, indeed. That concludes our Ref Watch segment. Thank you, Dermot. Then obviously Mike Arto scored, and it felt like a goal that was needed for Palace, as you say. And, they came down the left-hand side, cut it back, and Mike Arto manages to slot it home. A big goal, an important point for Palace. It does feel like a missed opportunity not to take 3. Considering the position they're in, this is the kind of game where you'd feel they need to get something, but it is still a point closer to safety. They are now only 3 points behind Leicester City, 4 points behind Aston Villa, 5 points behind West Ham. Really important point. They'd hope for more, though, from this game. As for Brighton, as you say, it's a really weird situation at the moment. They are just not picking up points at the moment, in the league at the moment. They've got West Ham up next, which is a game they'll view as an opportunity, but they've not won since, well, we have to scroll back all the way to West Ham in November. And I know they've had a tough run. They've played Chelsea, they've played Tottenham, Liverpool, United, and now Palace. But it's been a bit of a free-fall for Brighton after a really strong start to the season. They've just not picked up the points. And the problem is now you've got Tottenham only a point behind, Liverpool only 3 points behind, and Brian Sorensen's high-flying Toffees are only 5 points behind Brighton now, which, given how the two sides started the season, nobody would have placed those two sides that close. So it is looking a bit precarious. I mean, I know they've got West Ham, they've got FA Cup this weekend, then it's West Ham, but and that should be a win, but it's not a guarantee. And I think, they're in a bit of a weird situation at the moment, Brighton.
Yeah, and I think the FA Cup game this weekend is absolutely massive. Travelling to Aston Villa, that is going to be a very tasty game, because if Villa can play any way like they did against Chelsea, that's going to be very difficult for Brighton to get a result from. So, work for Brighton to do. We said in the mid-season reviews that they were kind of in no man's land, where they had, they were too far off the top 4, but they had a lovely gap to the rest of the league. That gap is now gone.
They managed to throw that away 3 weeks in.
Although they did somehow this game week manage to gain on Tottenham, which completely sums up Tottenham right now.
Yeah.
But work to do for Brighton.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's head on over to Merseyside, because Brian Sorensen is kicking up a storm, and it was an Everton 4-1 victory against Leicester City. I thought this was weirdly timed. Leicester had just come off what was a really good win against Liverpool, and they'd have expected to take momentum from that. Everton had come off a game against West Ham, which they lost. And so, going into this game, based on the form, you'd expected Everton to come into it down on their spirits, Leicester to be flying high. Instead, it's Everton who win 4-1. And yeah, I mean, a fantastic performance all round. I think Kelly Gargo's given them a whole new dimension to their attack. She scored 2 in this game. She's now their second top goal scorer this season, and she's matched Katja Snoe's tally for the campaign. Snoes did score in this game. And again, I think by adding stronger attackers around these Everton players, you do create a more dangerous attack. Kelly Gargo is adding so much to that attack. It's incredible. I think that by having her in there, you bring others' strengths into play. Heather Payne got an assist in this game because you're not just aiming for Katja Snow to the box. You've got options in there now, and so there is threat that other teams have got to deal with. I thought that Tony Payne had her best game in an Everton shirt, bar the game against Man City, and it is starting to show now. Claire Wheeler was excellent. Hanoko Hayashi with one of the strikes of the season. That low-driven effort into the bottom corner was phenomenal. And again, the same problems plagued Leicester as they have all season. Not many shots on target, and not many goals. They had one big chance, they put it away. So I think in this one, contrary to some of the other games, you can't really blame the forward players. Everton just overwhelmed them. Everton could have had even more. 13 shots in this game, 6 on target, 5 big chances, 2 missed. So a really strong performance, 65% of the ball. Brian Sorensen's Toffees are playing some really nice football, and I think they're a real force to reckon with for the rest of this season.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating for Leicester, a side that have been so good defensively this season, were absolutely torn apart, and credit to Everton.
They won at Chelsea, but 4 against.
It's incredible. Everton just played very, very well. Gargo looks to be a brilliant signing. Just the physical. It's very rare to see a player that is so good physically and in the air, but also with the ball at her feet. She's got a bit of everything, and it was probably one of the most nicest headers she'll have in her career for the 4th goal, unmarked at the back post, and you're 2 yards out. What more could you want?
Yeah.
But it was just, but Everton deserved chances like that because they worked well enough and they created opportunities that were so easy to finish. So credit to Gargo for coming up with a brace. She scored in the FA Cup against Tottenham as well. Looks to be a very handy player, and if they keep putting up numbers like this, if the attackers keep causing this many problems, they're going to shoot straight up the league. And this was the first game, and with the Tottenham FA Cup game on last Wednesday, it's starting to show that the Everton signings are starting to pay off. They look solid
Yeah.
at the back. It was a good finish for the Leicester goal, but apart from that, they were solid at the back and they just ran rampant in front of goal.
Yeah, and I think they scored 7 goals coming into that game. They're now on 11 for the season, and that's such a stark
Yeah.
contrast. I mean, Leicester still only managed 6 this season, and Leicester going into this game, they'll be annoyed they conceded 4 because going into this game they had less goals conceded than Manchester City, following City's
Yeah, it's
last few
incredible.
weeks. So, yeah, Leicester again just needed to sign a striker in January. I know they did, and they did add Hlyn Eriksdottir on the deadline day, but is that going to be enough? We'll see. Jutta Rantzala shouldn't be too long now until she's back, which will be useful. But yeah, I think it's just been another difficult game for Leicester. But I think full props to Everton. They've broken down a side who have been the 4th best defence in the league this season, which is absurd. I mean, Everton themselves have only conceded 20 goals. Again, that's only 2 more than Man City.
It's not bad.
So yeah, I think they're doing well now, Everton. And as I think you look back at that West Ham result from last weekend, and it's just even more confusing now. Because if they'd won that game, they'd be in an incredible position.
Yeah.
They'd be on 16 points. They'd be sat above Liverpool, a point off Tottenham, 2 points off Brighton. Suddenly you're looking at a European charge. No, big serious. Everton, very, very good performance. And things are looking very positive for the Toffees. They do face Chelsea in the FA Cup next, then Chelsea in the league, which is going to be difficult. But Aston Villa after that should be interesting, and then Arsenal. So a bit of a difficult run of games for Everton. But they've beaten Man City recently. They've beaten a Leicester side who've good defensively. They beat Aston Villa as recently as January, so there's not a huge difference between those 2 games. They'll have confidence, I think, going into the next run of fixtures. Let's move on then to Liverpool 1, West Ham 0. Probably the least exciting game of the weekend. Well, maybe bar Chelsea, Aston Villa. We'll get to that in a moment. Just not a lot happened. I mean, West Ham failed to register a shot on target in 90 minutes. They did have 9 shots and 2 big chances. They just didn't put them in. Vivian Asai's bicycle kick attempt was fun, but it didn't quite go in. And ultimately, it was Liverpool who took the win with a 33rd minute strike. Leanne Kiernan. It was a really well taken strike. And yeah, as you say, a great ball into her from Kerry Holland. So yeah, again, I think Liverpool were the better side here, deserved to win. 57% of the ball, 13 shots to 9, 2 on target to none, 3 big chances created to 2, and Liverpool still missed 2 big chances. Yeah. So just one of those days where neither side particularly wanted to score. It's a really important 3 points though for a Liverpool side who did drop points in really stupid fashion to Leicester last weekend, and yeah, they beat West Ham 5-0 in the week. They beat them 1-0. At the weekend. They've got Rugby Borough up next in the FA Cup, followed by a trip to Manchester City, who
I fancy that
at the moment look vulnerable. So that's going to be really interesting. But yeah, Liverpool, an important 3 points. Another game where Olivia Smith looked really sharp, and she had some shots that did require saving from Kinga Šemić. Another good game for Šemić, relatively, compared to how they've been. I thought Hanshaw came in and looked good as well, the new signing from AS Roma. So, yeah, and Martinez as well looked really sharp. She created that chance for Vivian Asai's bicycle kick. So, it wasn't a terrible performance from West Ham. Ultimately, they didn't really do enough in the final third, though. And I think it's, you can blame a lot of that down to the fact Liverpool are just a really strong team.
Yeah, it was one of those where quality prevailed in the end. It was a close game. Neither side could hit a barn or a banjo. No one wanted to score a goal, but it took the pass from Holland, I could watch it all day. So good into Kiernan, and that's what it takes sometimes to win those tight games. It takes a moment of quality from someone, and she managed to produce that. And good for Kiernan. She's now scored in back-to-back games, starting to get a bit of run of form going, which is good for her. Up there with Olivia Smith and with Howe coming back from injury as well. Things are looking up for Liverpool. They've got their players back now. It was an all-round really good team performance, and they'll start to build some momentum now, and I can see them climbing up the table again because they're a very good side.
Yeah, and one of those where just neither side could really test the goalkeeper enough. 22 shots in this game, only 2 on target between them.
Wow.
So
not one for the spectators.
No. Not the most exciting game. Another one that wasn't the most exciting game, Aston Villa 0, Chelsea 1. And now we could spend this whole thing talking about how Chelsea just weren't good enough. It's another one where they had 11 shots, only 2 on target. Uncharacteristically poor in front of goal from Chelsea. But I think I wouldn't put it all on Chelsea. I thought Aston Villa were absolutely excellent. They were phenomenal at covering every inch of the pitch. They were really narrow, really compact, and made it really difficult for Chelsea to break them down. Ultimately, the breakthrough did come in quite a fortuitous manner for Chelsea. A ball into the box from Mayra Ramirez that Sarah Mailing got a little bit crossed up with and ended up putting in her own net. But yeah, this wasn't vintage Chelsea. A very good performance from Villa, though. Chelsea come away with the 3 points.
Yeah, credit to Natalia Arroyo because she set her side up superbly for this game, and I feel for Mailing because she had a superb. She was my player of the match, and I think she did get player of the match in the City game. She was superb. She was again a really good game here until that own goal. Just when you're defending a ball into your box and you're just caught a bit flat-footed, you can't slide in it parallel with the ball. You have to slide in so you're going to kick it out. It's a frustrating one. D'Angelo was an inch away from stopping it with her foot, saying that she'd gone the other way to stop Hermano. It was really unfortunate for Villa. They defended superbly, but I think it was the overall performance. It wasn't one of those where they just sat in a low block and absorbed pressure. They came at Chelsea. They had chances. They had the same amount of shots on target. There were opportunities for Aston Villa to win this game. The Hansen shot that Hampton tipped onto the crossbar was...
Kirsty Hansen, a fantastic
she was superb, and Ashley Lawrence just couldn't contain her. It was superb from Hansen.
As I was going to say, Chelsea's individuals just didn't step up in this game. I thought Ashley Lawrence was particularly poor, got bullied by Kirsty Hansen down that flank. I thought Vika Kaptein had a really tough game in midfield, and I don't think Chelsea's attack was functional at all. I don't understand the decision to put Lauren James up front. Thought that was a bit of a weird one, and then Macaro in the 10 and Naki Beaver-Jones out wide. And then when we changed things, Carnegie came on, but Lauren James moved to left wing, where again I don't think she was that effective. I don't get why we've brought James back and we're just exclusively playing her out of position. That was a really weird one for me. I'd have just put her in attack midfield and let her dominate the game. Instead, trying to play out front didn't really work. I think you could have easily just swapped her and Kat, or put Kat out wide and Aggie up front. And then, as I say, I thought the substitution to bring Carnegie on and move things around in the way they did was also really bizarre. I don't think that worked out either. So, yeah, a bit of a weird one for Chelsea, but ultimately the important thing is they got the win, and I think that's, as I said on stream, that's what champions do.
Yeah.
They win the games they shouldn't, and yeah, a really well executed defensive performance from Aston Villa. They were really unlucky not to come away with something from the game. Chelsea, as I say, fortuitous in the manner of victory, but a very important 3 points to sees them maintain their 7-point gap at the top of the WSL. Aston Villa, well, they are still in 10th, but if they play like they have so far under Arroyo, if they keep up the form for under Sean Gota, they should be absolutely fine. They've got a kinder run coming up. Leicester, Everton and Palace in the league. Obviously a trip, they're welcoming Brighton to Villa Park in the FA Cup as well next weekend. So I think they'll favour those fixtures.
Yeah.
I think they really will.
It's a case of deja vu from the opening game of the season in terms of it's the same message that Villa probably deserve something from the game. It's where Villa has to take the positives from performance. Chelsea do what champions do and win the game. And for Villa, they'll be hoping that it won't end up the same way that DePaul did.
Even down to D'Angelo going up for a set piece, it was such a similar game. If only it was an evening fixture, I would have thought I was just watching the highlights from the opening day.
But it was really good from Villa. I'm intrigued to see what Arroyo can build. She's a top coach. She's proven that her game management and setting her team up for one game is superb. Now Villa have got to build on that performance, build on consistency, and I'm intrigued to see what they're like when they're not, when they've got more of the ball, when they're the favoured side. They were very, very good when they didn't have the ball, and when they're shutting Chelsea down, the physicality of especially the back four was superb. They were brilliant. They were really assertive. But what are they like when they are the favoured team? When they're on the ball, what can they do? But a really good performance. They've got to take positives from it, got to take belief, but not a bad start for Arroyo.
The performance they put up, though, it does make you question if she had been there for Man City and the form City are in at the moment, would they have got a result?
Potentially.
If they were more defensively solid, if they were more difficult to break down, would they have stopped City? Again, it's a hypothetical, it's difficult to say, but it's definitely a possibility given the way the City are playing at the moment. And let's move on then to our final game at Tottenham 0, Manchester United 1. It was a WSL action where it all kicked off in the first few hours and then really tailed off. Aston Villa Chelsea wasn't a great game. United Tottenham also not a great game. Tottenham were much better than usual, but still weren't really able to come forward and offer much in the final third.
it was one of those where if United on another day could have won this 5 or 6-0. It felt like they did. They just didn't want to. So they decided to just, which meant it, because that's the final 10, 15 minutes, it was like, well, Tottenham are still in this game, they can get something from it. But
the lead felt precarious, but Tottenham never felt like testing that.
And as Elizabeth Turland had stopped kicking the floor and started kicking the football, she probably could have scored 4 or 5 goals in this match. It was a match that was it was kind of just a mess of just people wanting to fight each other for the whole match. It was really bizarre, and Tottenham did well to upset the rhythm, but United should have scored a hatful. And I think Tottenham, again, fortunate to only lose 1-0. Every result they get seems to be fortunate this season.
Well, Turland started off with a really exquisite, well-executed volley, and it felt like that was a sign of things to come after she scored after only 6 minutes. However, the other 17 shots that Manchester United had in the game, they only registered 2 on target.
Wow.
It was a game, again, I don't know what happened at WSL this weekend. Nobody could shoot. No. There were so many shots and none of them were anywhere near the goal. In this game, United had all of the ball, really. They were camped in Tottenham's half. Tottenham couldn't really play out. But United also couldn't break down Tottenham. They couldn't get the ball into a good area. They were just taking shots from range a lot of the time. Elizabeth Turland, as you say, she had about 5 or 6 where she could have released the trigger and missing the ball or kicking the ground or boot and bar tripping the knee. So it's just one of those. I don't know what was happening between Turland and Bartrip. They were scrapping constantly, just shoving on and off the ball. Weird one. But yeah, United just isn't. I don't know. It just didn't materialise.
Yeah,
they won in this game. They won. That's important. 3 points, but they could have won by a much more convincing margin. As for Tottenham, it's another game where their attack just looked a little dysfunctional. I thought Rasa was a bit more exciting than she has been in recent games. I thought this was a game where Maite Oros was really good, and I think she is a quality player. They just need to play her in a more attacking area. I thought Beth England was quiet, and that's probably why Tottenham didn't score.
Yeah.
Because they do rely heavily on England to do everything, and she wasn't on it today. But yeah, defensively they weren't too bad. They dealt with United quite effectively. I thought that's why United didn't get better shots away. But yeah, it did feel that they were there for the taking. United simply didn't take them. But 3 points is a win. It's another, result for United. They stay second. They keep the gap with Chelsea to 7 points. They extend it to City. They're still 3 points ahead of Arsenal. So they are in a really nice position now, United. But this is a kind of game where it felt like they could have really kicked on.
Yeah. Claire Hunt, credit to her because that's her best performance in a Tottenham shirt.
I mean, it's not a high bar, but she was very good in this game.
She did play well, and as you say, it's her best performance. It's best on season by far. But yeah, Tottenham just did nothing. But they can't complain. They're still in 6th. They should be very happy to be in 6th right now because it is just not working. And I think Ryebrink looked okay. Stop playing Marta Thomas in the 10. You've got 2 attacking midfielders sat on the bench, and Villaham's
and one in the pivot.
And Villaham's still. He's got 3 attacking midfielders at Tottenham, and he still chooses to put a striker there. It is beyond me. Put a creator in there. Put Holt in there. Put Siki in there. Put Oros higher up. It's bizarre. And
stick Wimberg in there if you really have to.
Until they do that, they will not create anything, and it will just be relying on Beth England to score goals. They have to put a creator on the pitch.
Because the problem is the wingers aren't providing enough at the moment. Naz tries to blast past everyone, but that wasn't happening. Jade Riviere is too good for you just to knock the ball past her and sprint past her. She's not going to allow that.
Yeah.
So she dealt with that threat easily. And Rasa was trying to do the same against George, but I think Rasa's forgetting she's not, 25 anymore.
Yeah.
She has hit 30. That pace has gone slightly, and she was getting outpaced every time by George. So neither winger was able to have any meaningful impact on this game. Rasa was slightly better than she has been with, driving that ball inside and trying to take it on in different ways. But most of the time she tried to outrun the fullbacks, which wasn't going to happen against George and Riviere. That's the one team you don't do that against. And I just think it's another performance where Tottenham really didn't know what to do with the ball once they got forwards. There's such a lack of attacking structure, and they just don't look like they know how to score at the moment. As for United, they look really good defensively, and it just this game which just didn't really come together in attacking areas. I thought Jade Riviere was phenomenal once again. She's had a fantastic season, but obviously she put up the assist for the Turland goal. She was flawless defensively throughout. So yeah, another big win for Manchester United and another difficult pill for Tottenham to swallow.
Yeah, five wins in a row in the league for Man United. They are absolutely flying. And with the Arsenal City result, they look pretty nailed on now for the top 3 and for Europe.
And their run is absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
Wolverhampton Wanderers in the FA Cup this weekend, followed by Palace, Leicester, Liverpool, Villa, Everton, West Ham. I can't see them dropping points in those 6 games. If they win all of those, they go into their final 3 games of the season, which is Chelsea, City and Arsenal, in a really good position.
Yeah, they can end up losing all of them, but still have them.
But
still
they may have the
margin.
gap. Yeah. Because in that time, City have still got to play Chelsea at the end of March, which, based on current form, you'd expect Chelsea to win. You also, right now, I can't see City not dropping points at somewhere stupid as well.
Yeah.
They've still got to play Everton again. They've already beaten them once, and now they're armed with Kelly Gargo and Brian Sorensen's super team.
Yeah.
I think Everton will probably win that right now.
Eventually.
But yeah, it's one of those. United are in a decent spot now. They've just got to keep those points ticking over and then see what they can get from the final 3 games of the season. But they are, right now, probably the favourites to get second in the league, which, if you'd said that at the start of the season, you would be either a time traveller or just completely insane. But they were really good in the first few games. We doubted it. But they are playing well now. They've been defensively fantastic this season. Only 5 goals shipped in the league. That is the least goals conceded in the WSL. That's 1 less than Chelsea. But yeah, again, they don't batter teams particularly, do they? This game could have been a big victory, and it was only 1-0.
Yeah.
But they play Wolves this weekend. That should be a chance to get some goals, to play some players that perhaps haven't had loads of minutes. I think Melvin Mallard is someone who should be starting in that game. I think that'll be a chance to give players like Rachel Williams a bit of a run out. Clinton, you'd expect to come back into the side, so that's useful. As for Tottenham, well, they're out of the FA Cup, obviously, because they lost to Everton. They play Arsenal next weekend, followed by Manchester City. So not the ideal run for Tottenham. No football this weekend, followed by Arsenal, international break, then Man City. And then Brighton after that. So it doesn't get any easier for Tottenham. But yeah, weird run of games. Anyway, that just about rounds up. Shall we have a look at the WSL table, actually, before we disappear? You don't have to sound so disappointed. Look at the table. Harry, will start at the top. Chelsea still unbeaten this season. 37 points taken from 13 games. Only 2 points dropped all season. A fantastic record. Plus 32 is the goal difference. United in second on 30 points. Only 7 points off top. And 3 points out of Arsenal in third, who returned to winning ways against Man City this weekend. City slipping down the table. They're into fourth now on 25 points, but they have got a nice 7-point cushion back to Brighton, who only took a point against bottom place Palace. In sixth, it's Tottenham, 17 points to their name. Another loss, though, and that meant Liverpool in seventh, closer to them with their victory against West Ham. 15 points now for Liverpool, only 2 behind Tottenham. And only 2 behind Liverpool is Everton. Everton in eighth, resurgent under Brian Sorensen since the January transfer window. How high can they fly is now the big question. West Ham in ninth. Another disappointing loss, but they weren't too bad in that game against Liverpool. 11 points to their name. They seem safe at the moment from relegation, but things can change very quickly. In 10th, it's Aston Villa, who look very good under Arroyo, but it'll be interesting to see how they play against weaker opposition. In 11th, it's Leicester City on 9 points. Another weekend where they were simply outclassed by a team that's close to them in the table, which is a worrying sign. And then bottom of the league, Crystal Palace. The season's not gone so well so far, but a big point this weekend, and they'll be hoping to take belief going into the rest of the season. Minus 24 goal difference, though. They've got some work to do to catch up to the other teams in the league. That, though, does conclude Matchweek 13's roundup. We'll be back this week. Conti Cup streams are coming. We're live on Wednesday for Chelsea West Ham, and then Harry will be here on Thursday for Arsenal versus Manchester City. And then FA Cup this weekend, where again, unfortunately, I'm not about, but Harry will be here to provide some FA Cup action. So yes, if you like listening to Harry, then tune in Thursday and Sunday if you like both of us. I'm here Wednesday. Then we'll have another video out on Wednesday. We'll have a video out on Friday. Look out for those. Champions League draw coming this Friday as well. Going to be interesting to see what happens there. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.